kind of feel like this would be a good time to talk about like the progression of Taj's over the years.
I've been thinking about that while we were talking here, but
Yeah.
one of the segues for that I kind of had in the back of my mind was the progression of music between montages. So we're talking about how you may
Well, that's what
consider,
I meant to.
yeah, you may consider an oversaturation of EDM in today's montages, but think about what it was back in, 2007 and
Total
2004
rock
back.
songs everywhere.
Hard
Yeah,
rock, total rock, all
everywhere.
kinds of rock.
That
Yeah,
was the
and a lot of people
EDM.
miss that, honestly.
Yeah, that was the
Like
EDM
the
equivalent
whole
back
time that
then
they're talking about
because it was used
Yeah.
so much. And nobody
Yeah.
complained, There were maybe some that were like, well, what about something different? But then again, EDM wasn't really much of a thing back then. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
it's definitely grown a lot. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like there was like a stereotype back in the day about like certain quote montage songs, and they had to be like really intense and really like I don't know, flashy to show off your clips. But nowadays, I feel like that's broadened like a lot. Like you can see really really cool tages that have really slow paced, really like
I feel like you can kind of do
feelsy
whatever
songs,
you
I
want.
guess. Like back in the day, you look at like the last song of Ishii's M8, there's no way that would be used back in like 2006 or 2007.
Yeah.
But
and you also mentioned how you said it seemed like a standard of songs back then, right? Well, to a degree, there's almost like a standard of songs that people want for modern montages. For example, Tony has been waiting so long for a song because he has a very specific vision
yeah,
of what he
yeah.
wants. And same with Mike. Mike has always had a very specific vision of music in his main Tages because
Hmm.
he just really wants that kind of soundtrack. I had a very specific vision for the Miller Taj soundtrack. And even a project that I picked up just yesterday, I have two songs that I really want to use for it. And because I had a very specific vision of like having more energy in it. And I normally don't edit to things that have a lot of energy to it, but these two are very much that case.
I'm
And
excited to see that.
yeah, and I don't really want to deviate from that, especially because the last two things that I edited for him, they weren't like really chill songs necessarily. I thought it would be weird if I went to something more chill for his main Taj than the two
Oh,
mini
I know
Tajes.
what this project is.
So it's kind of weird if I were to like kind of like do a decrescendo to the intensity of the music. So I wanted
Hmm.
something more energetic for the main Taj.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of people do have visions. Like this might not be the first person that a lot of people know of, but like Sean, adversary, he always has like a very
He
specific
does.
vision of how he wants like his video to go, down to like the effects and down to like everything. And
Yeah,
I don't
for
know
sure.
if that's how like every editor goes like by, but I feel like it definitely can help, like because you can
I
really
mean,
have
I have
like an
some
outline in your
visions.
head of what you want to happen.
depending on the
Like,
song, I'll be
yeah.
that way.
Right.
Like, um, okay, well, I can tell you the project that's much further down the line, the three songs I have chosen for it right now, I already know exactly how I'm going to edit certain portions of the song, and I haven't even gotten some of the clips yet. And there's some where I actually have like angles planned out and stuff that go along with the lyrics, which that I guess makes more sense because the lyrics already define something. You can relate something to it. But there's some videos I've made in the past. Let's say Sunset, the video that I made for Luke ATR a little while back. There was a point at the in the last clip where I used some rays to kind of go along with the song, and I had that very specifically envisioned before I even started editing it. Here's actually something I've never told anyone before. Along with a lot of the music that I have, there are some that I don't feel like I should edit montages to, but through listening to them, I've actually had a very specific vision of an animation instead. But I don't know how to
Hmm.
animate. Like, I understand it, but I don't know how to use my program for it,
Yeah.
which really
Yeah.
sucks. But I have like actual scenes like played out in my head that I want to make one day, like for these songs. But I don't know when I'd ever be able to do that. And to a degree, I'll have that same kind of thing going on when I listen to music and I'm going to edit a montage to it. But it's actually usually less vivid. So, I don't know. It is different for everyone, though, I'm sure.
All right, I'm saying it. yes, I'm confirming right now there will be an M6
Ah,
that I will release at some point. But as Chris knows, I don't know if you know Devin, but I do have my two songs picked out, and I have around 20, 25 clips. And my girlfriend Darian lives 40 minutes away from my house. So I have 40 minutes there and 40 minutes back to listen to
yep,
those two songs over and over again and
yep.
think about the clips that I have so far. And I know exactly where almost every clip is going to go, exactly how it's going to be edited, what angles I'm going to need for it, and what effects I'm going to use.
Hmm.
So, as far as vision goes, at least for my personal Tajes, I definitely have the vision.
Yeah, and that's one thing I actually want to bring up, and that is like you don't see it too much in the community these days, but there are some real big advantages to self-editing your own video.
That's so true.
Like you can get it perfect if you really like put in the effort and time and knowledge into the program you're using. But I mean, beyond that, like I don't know, you can just kind of lay out everything as you want to. Like if there's a clip that you want to make sure like doesn't get like I don't know, quote butchered, which I mean, if you're gonna self-edit, you're gonna pay attention to stuff like that, and you won't have like problems with your editor. Like if they send you a render that you're like not happy with, for example, there's like a really big like advantage to doing that. So
Well, I'll say too one thing. One thing we were talking about, not too long ago was songs and stuff. And honestly, there have been videos I've edited that have been released and haven't been released that I probably would have liked more if I had more control over the songs, but I also don't want to be completely in control of the songs because it's not my video. But like, I think you guys both know this. If you're editing a song that you kind of compromised with, you might
yeah,
not have as much enjoyment because, like,
not only enjoyment, but I feel like the creativity of the video goes down, the overall effort goes down. I mean, it's a
well,
really big thing to edit to a song that you actually like want to edit to. Like
no,
I don't know,
here's an
it's
example.
yeah.
I think pretty much everyone knows by now that I'm editing Mike Ishii's M9. And I think a lot of people are fairly aware with the song choices for the most part. It's like not too big of a secret, but there was a huge time, and I think you both remember this, where he kind of like with his clips, he doesn't know what he wants for songs and stuff. And there was a time where I was like, okay, Mike, stick with these songs because if you don't, I'm going to completely run out of all these visions and ideas I have, and then you're
Mhm.
not going to have as good of an edit. Because
That
that's
can be
true.
a really
That's
tough
super
thing
true.
for players to understand, but it's really, really easy when you sit down and have no vision, no motivation for a song because you personally don't want to listen to it or don't want to edit to it. It's a really big like mental block, I guess is the word.
We were talking about the idea of like getting a specific vision as an editor though, and how self-editing can really help with that. And I always worry about it. Whenever I make someone a video, am I actually gonna give them something that they want to watch? And
Right.
so far I've only had that happen once. I had a video I completed a little while ago, and it was the first time where the guy said, well, I would have liked something different, I guess. Even though like we agreed on the song choice, apparently the way I went about editing it isn't something that he was originally satisfied with. And it's impossible for me to specifically know, and any editor to specifically know what is going on in their head, what is their vision for the Taj. Because what he explained to me after I finished it was not mentioned at all prior to actually putting it together. And I didn't really imagine at all that that's what he was looking for. And I guess I've been fortunate enough to not having made another project where the client was dissatisfied with it, but I always worry about that happening, you know? So it's like, and it does suck. If you're someone that doesn't edit, you have no control over that to a degree. You can write a full out essay on what your vision is for the project, and there's still no guarantee that the editor can get it right, even following it word for word, because it's kind of like when you describe a dream to someone. There's no way that they can possibly envision exactly what your dream was like. So,
I'm thinking of a project right now that I won't mention, but a friend of mine had a crazy vision for a video. And because that vision was so crazy, like that video was delayed for years. And his vision was never like fully realized, but like there were some things in there that just like I don't know. It's a lot to like put on someone. Just like do this insane thing and then show it to me and then like make sure it's exactly what I had in mind and stuff. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a lot of that still going on, but like that's just an example that I thought of and couldn't help but laugh at. And Aaron knows what I'm talking about, I think.
I yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well,
oh,
I will say what you guys were talking about self-editing. I mean, that's how I came into this community personally, is because
Yep.
I got a lot of praise on my Reach Montage 4 because I edited it myself. And, you know, I'm not going to say it was good, but you guys said it was good.
It is. I
So,
still watch.
so yeah, that's one thing is, and that was what, 3 years ago? Has it been that long?
Jeez.
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
guess.
But I think, at least for me, I've noticed ever since I did it, seeing other people do it, it's a lot more rewarding to see, at least.
is that it for that
Yeah.
topic, or do we want to go to motivation?
Oh boy,
All right, let's go to motivation.
it sucks. I think all three of us can say we struggle with it, but well, actually, any editor can struggle with it. But
Yeah.
motivation is definitely probably the biggest thing I struggle with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing too is sometimes I don't have a lot of motivation to edit, but I think I should edit, and then I do, and I
Dude,
usually
I've
mess
had
something
times where
up.
I turn on my Xbox and like go into theater like with the intention of getting an angle and I just like stare at it for like 10 seconds like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I just turn on my Xbox.
See, I have a
Like
similar thing, except usually for me, it's usually I try to cap the angle and I mess up once, and I'm like, all right, it's not worth it, and then I get off.
yeah,
That
that's
sounds like
happened.
me in matchmaking. I'll say, you know what, I'm actually gonna play Halo today and like go for clips and not editage. I play one game, I'm like, that was a shit game, and then I just get off. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've had that happen before too, especially
motivation is not just for editing; it's for anything related to
yeah,
Halo.
absolutely. But editing wise, the one thing I do want to mention here is it's probably not a secret that it took me like a year and a half to edit Cheesecake's M2, and there are a lot of reasons behind that, like both technical and motivation wise. But one thing is that not only did I lose a bunch of renders, which I had like completely done, but also there was a point where I was picking up so many projects in the meantime. Like I picked up Campy and I's Duel like in the middle of editing Phil's M2. And I came back to it after I was done with all those projects. I like came back to something that I hadn't touched in months, and I looked at it, and I just had like absolutely no drive to want to finish it because like I had learned so much since then, and like I have an old thing sitting here that like I couldn't end up like doing anything on. So I ended up scrapping it completely and going and actually re-editing that entire song. Like it's just something which I don't know if other people can relate to, but like if someone's sitting on your computer for that long and you go back to it, it's really hard to pick up pick up where you left off, I guess I'll say.
Well, I'll say, even though it's not out yet, so I shouldn't talk too much about it for Backsmack's Taj, because people know that is coming out at some point.
Yeah.
That took 8 months, maybe, and
It's
I
like
think,
twice as long as Cheesecake's M2. God, I suck.
and I think Chris remembers this, but I don't even know if Cole remembers this. So if he watches this, sorry. Um, but I didn't touch it, and this was honestly too because I had school and I had a lot of other stuff. I was part of the drama department, so I had a lot of stuff going on. But I didn't touch it for like a month or 2 months, and then I got back into it, after finally getting enough time and motivation to do it, and I finished like 2 songs in like a weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
it's
that's
like
the other thing.
it's
When motivation hits you, you can like go through that like crazy. Like
yeah, because I definitely did, and I know Chris would say that it definitely showed.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I mean when you have a big motivation boost, it can like straight up like make you release a video. Like I did Darren Simplified's H5M1. I did that in like a week or so, I think. And that was a 2 song long Taj. I like actually put in like a lot of effort in. And like part of that is that I had a lot of time, but also it was just like I felt like editing. Like some days I wake up and I actually really like want to get stuff done editing wise, and some days I wake up and it's like, God, I don't want to do anything.
Well, that's another thing too is, so for my school, which I start in a couple weeks, I have this online course I have to do. And this morning I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna edit today. I really have that motivation, but I need to get some of this coursework done. So I did about 30 minutes, an hour of coursework and stuff. And then I was hungry, so I had some lunch, watched some Game of Thrones and stuff. And then I was like, all right, I don't want to edit.
Yeah,
And I didn't edit all
yeah.
day, and it kind of sucks.
That's another thing which I don't know if a lot of people can relate to, but when you're both a montager and an editor, sometimes you just
That
want to
it's
get on because you feel like you're gonna miss the lobbies. Like
no, that's
I've had
honestly
times
true.
where like I know I should be editing, but then I look and it's like, oh, it's free Xbox Live weekend. I can't edit. I have
Oh,
to play
yeah.
like 24/7. So
See, and that's the thing that sucks because I know I think it's happened more than once where there has been those weekends, and those are the weekends I have motivation to edit, and I hate it.
yeah,
One huge thing for me with motivation, honestly, and this sucks, is because, again, it's not part of Devin's workflow very much, but a huge workflow for me is angles. And though
yep,
I'm not Silly Goose, I'm not Zestel, I definitely try my best to, get some pretty good angles and stuff. But it's really demotivating to have to get on Xbox, like go in a custom game and walk around for a little bit or get
yeah,
shot and then go back and record it and then put it in Final Cut or Adobe, add cropping to it and all that stuff.
yeah,
I
and like not only is that a really annoying process, which we shouldn't have to go through, which kind of ties into theater being garbage too, but also, like when you sit there and you go through like 5 or 6 like attempts at angles and they're just like all garbage, you just like start just like getting upset to the point where you're just like, I have to get off. This is just gonna make me really upset.
Yeah.
So
Well, one of the things too for me is my Xbox setup is in my basement, but the desk where I usually edit is upstairs. So if I'm like grinding with editing and I've worked for like 4 hours, or whatever, I'm like, okay, I need this angle, then I'm done. I have to pick up my laptop, go all the way downstairs, turn on the Xbox, get all of this done, and then cap the stuff, then go back upstairs to do it again. And by that time, I'm done and I don't want to do it.
yeah,
Honestly, one of the reasons I really respect you, Devin, is in the fact that for the most part, you have everything there when you start.
yeah,
For me, it's like I have the clips, but I have to go get all the other stuff to finish it. And it's like going to get all the stuff that
yeah.
demotivates me the most,
I
I don't
know
probably.
think
a
that
lot
really
of editors
warrants
have
respect then. That's just like I make it easier on myself.
I mean, I know a lot of editors have a workflow where they kind of do everything uh like I guess sequentially. So like they'll actually
Yeah.
they will sync everything out, but they won't move on till the next clip until like angles and cropping and effects are like all done. Like I wish I could do that, but I can't.
Yeah. See, we have this like render group where we send in renders and stuff and um ask for feedback because that's one of the main things you need for an
Yeah,
editor is doing it
definitely.
solo. It's, you know, for some people it works, but for the most part, you need some sort of feedback. And Mr. Blonde always gets mad at me and Chris because we always render something with
without angles.
15 seconds of black space for where the intro is supposed
Oh
to be,
god.
and then black spaces for where all the angles are supposed to be, because
I
that's our
forgot
first
to
render.
mention that. I always save the intro for last. It's
I
like an
do
awful
too.
habit, but I do it, and I know it's bad, but it's like the hardest part of a video for me are angles and text, and that's normally what the two things that an intro like requires. So yeah, but Mr. Blonde gets really upset with us and actually won't even watch renders from us if there aren't like angles and stuff
If they
in there.
aren't completed, he can't give
Yeah.
us complete feedback, which is actually a good thing. But
Yep. Yeah,
so
and that actually kind of goes with something. I saw a render for a project soon from Xander, and I saw a render like a month ago of the same song, and with angles, the flow is like completely different from what I thought it was going to be. So, I mean, Rob definitely has a pretty big point there where like sometimes you actually can't tell until everything's there.
yeah, no, that's something I've noticed too, and that's actually something I think Chris wanted to touch upon. But I'll say it too is um, it's not. I'm not like trying to be a teacher here, but for all editors, I think most editors know is the effects and the cropping and um, the angles and stuff. Well, maybe angles, but none of that really matters if you
If
don't
you don't
have
have
proper
good flow.
flow. You
Yep.
gotta have good flow first. And I'm not saying I have the best flow. I think we all know it's like those top editors, Mr. Blonde, Zestel, Silly, all of them. They have really good flow. I wouldn't say I have the best flow, but I do know when I have bad flow for
Yeah.
sure. And
And
like you said, sometimes it looks like I have bad flow, and then you see me add the angles, and it's like, oh, it's
yeah,
not bad flow. It's just it needs
you
more
had a
to it.
certain idea that wasn't realized until
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that's actually something that Mr. Blonde would always tell me is like focus on flow first, like no matter what. And like if you don't have good flow for a montage at least, and we'll talk about like montage versus edit later, but I mean, if you don't have good flow for a montage that's meant to showcase gameplay, it's just gonna like stand out. You can have amazing effects and amazing angles, but if your flow isn't good, it's gonna kill the video, honestly. Like it's a really, really important thing that people need to realize. And it's definitely hard. Like Rob and I have talked about before, like some people think that like maybe to have a good like idea of flow and pace and stuff, you have to like kind of be familiar with like different instruments and different like music genres because I mean you can like identify the beats and the pace of the song and stuff like that. But it definitely takes time no matter if you're starting or if you're like an experienced editor. Like I've had people tell me that like my flow is like really good and I'll look back at it and I'll just always think there's something that I need to like improve upon because
No,
it's
I
really
agree.
tough because like when I first started and I still have this problem sometimes too, like depending on the song, it's always like, do I sing to the words or do I sing to the beat? And that's something that like a lot of people struggle with like a
Yeah.
lot for sure. And
That's something I'll say about me is, and I think people can agree with this, is for the most part, I'm not super consistent in my syncing. Now, I think my syncing's, decent, but like, for example, Mr. Blonde Rob, he
yep.
edits to every snare or every beat or everything. I edit to what I think sounds best. Not
Yes.
saying it is the best, but what I personally think sounds best. And sometimes it's the words, sometimes it's the beat, sometimes it's a mix of the two, whatever sounds best. And I know I don't really know how to tie this in, but I want to bring this up too is we were talking about flow and pace and stuff. And I was saying how getting feedback is really good because um, Kyle's MCC montage one. When I first edited that, I thought I had really good flow, but it was way too fastly edited. Like Kyle didn't like it.
Oh, I
He,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, he didn't like it, and I actually redid the whole thing. But that's probably my favorite edit by far.
Yeah.
So I will say, for me as an editor personally, having like friends to help you out with stuff is probably the best thing to
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if I didn't have people to tell me out with renders, there would be a lot of mistakes in my videos. Like, it's really it's it's important to get feedback not only from the person you're editing for, but also just from people who know the programs and know the like I don't know, just know how to edit, and like you have to make sure that you like trust their opinion and all that stuff. Like it's really, really important.
Yeah.
So let's move into montaging versus editing. And the most fundamental difference that I want to start off with is that edits are for showcasing editing, whereas montages are for showcasing gameplay. And yes, you can have amazing editing for a montage. That's what usually makes some montages really well known because they'll have some amazing editing done along with the gameplay. But the important thing is that the gameplay is shown. Because when you look at things at a professional level, if you see a commercial on TV, for example, there was an editor that was paid to edit that commercial. And the goal of the commercial is not to see, oh, look at how fancy I can make the editing on this. No, it's showing the product. And a
Yeah.
montage is the exact same way. You are there to show the product, which is the gameplay. And if you can make, the editing look really fancy but still show the product, you're good to go. That keeps the viewer's attention. That's the point. But it's not to be, oh, look at how good I am with my editing program. Because chances are you're not going to spend nearly as much time editing as they did spending their own time getting gameplay. So if you just throw that out the window, that's not the way to do it. Especially when you look at all these people that they've been editing montages for years. That's what they do. They focus on showing the gameplay. You see Silly Goose and Zestel and Xander make all these great projects, but you don't see them just destroying the visibility of the clips. Whereas with edits, it really doesn't matter. In fact, you see people that will make edits, and sometimes they're just like staged single kills or whatever, and they do the most creative things that they can with those. That's fine because the gameplay is not the priority there. So,
Right.
Yeah. I was about to say, I feel like we're definitely going to talk about this more because there definitely, like what Devin's been saying, there's definitely a huge difference between an edit and a montage and like a montage edit. But neither one is bad. Like edits, they're actually cool. They're entertaining. I like watching edits, but I don't watch the edits for, their single kills or whatever. When
Yeah.
I watch a montage, I kind of watch it for both, but I want to see the clips,
Right.
you know. But I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not saying one's better than the other or one's bad, one's good, but I wanted to, or I know we want to say that there is a difference between the
Yeah.
two.
And this kind of also goes to like the difference between editing Halo versus editing different games. And that is like with Halo, I feel like you have to be like really careful how you edit clips because in Call of Duty, the well, first of all, if the game has theater, some Call of Duty games don't. If the game has theater, then chances are the theater is going to be how Halo 5 theater is like right now. It's not going to show the shots super accurately. And that doesn't matter because you don't have to be super precise with Call of Duty because most clips are like quick scopes for example. And you can like cut like frames in the scope to sync better. That's like a thing that happens a lot. But when people try that style with Halo, it just doesn't work because I mean, quick scoping isn't something that is like I mean, it's cool when you do it in clips, but like if you I'm trying to think of a good example. If you get a clip that's like all hard scope on, I don't know, like Valhalla or something, and you edit it to make it look like every single clip is like a quick scope, like
It doesn't
that,
look right.
yeah, it doesn't look like it doesn't look right, and it also like straight up ruins the gameplay in some parts. And but it definitely can be done well is the bottom line, but it also like you have to make sure gameplay is the priority. And And I mean, if gameplay is the priority, there shouldn't really be a reason to like cut out stuff like that, unless you're like cutting out missed shots or AFKs or stuff like that. So there's that. And then there's also a style that's becoming really common in edits, and not just Halo edits, but edits in general, like gaming edits. And it's this really fast-paced velocity style, and it's not always fast-paced, but it's basically where you turn up the speed of a clip like a lot to sync it, and then slow it down and kind of do like this, like I don't really know how to describe it, like a really
It's like a
motion based,
it's
like
like a
cropping based.
Twixter. It's
Yeah,
like a Twixter slow wiggle shake kind of thing, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
But yeah,
and
it's like, and kind of what we were saying, there's nothing wrong with that type of edit, but with Halo, I don't think it works quite as well, especially for montages.
yeah. I feel like it can work in Halo if you're doing an edit just to be an edit, and with
Yeah.
gameplay that like isn't anything crazy. But if you put that kind of style on like really good clips, you're pretty much butchering them in my eyes. Like in that style too. Like I've seen multiple times where like they straight up cut out the shot completely, and they like only sync like where the shot is supposed to be, but they cut out the animation that's actually like in the game of shooting.
Yeah, I
Um,
think this has been a, controversy like ever since there was the whole feud between Call of Duty and Halo. But our purpose with editing, Halo is very much based on the shots and like the
mhm.
accuracy of the shots. So as us three being montage editors, we kind of want to focus on that. Now, I've been guilty of it. I know other editors have been guilty of it. I do cut out, some frames on the shots. And sometimes I've noticed I've gone a little too far, but I don't try to like cut out the shot. I try to just cut out the unnecessary part of the shot. Like sometimes, like for a lot of Halo 3 stuff I've edited, most of the clips I edit sometimes are kind of laggy a little bit.
Yeah,
So when he gets the shot, it takes like 3 or 4 frames after the shot for him to die. So I'm like, "Oh, I should just cut that part out so it flows better." But I
yeah,
don't try to cut out the actual shot. I cut out the time from the shot to him dying. I'm
yeah,
not saying that's the best way to go, but that's what I do, and that's kind of the difference is I feel like for Call of Duty editors, and again, nothing wrong with Call of Duty editors, but I feel like if they edit Halo, they'll cut out the entire shot and it kind of just ruins it a little bit.
yeah. And I should also point out that this is all just opinion based. This is our
Yeah.
opinion. You're allowed to have yours, obviously, but it's just kind of something that we've noticed a lot, because like there are some videos out there that have this style of editing that is taken straight from other games and placed into Halo, and the end result is the clip just doesn't like you can tell like it's been heavily edited, and you can't even like, I don't want to say you can't tell what's going on in the clip, but sometimes it actually does reach that level where you actually like can't see what's happening like clearly. And I don't know. That's something that's fine in an edit that's meant specifically to showcase an edit. But if it's meant to actually show off someone's clips, it just doesn't work that way, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And I think one problem too is I think some people, not everyone for sure, but I think some people don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Like I think there's some people who are montage editors who thinks that editors who just do edits are like they're bad because they don't know what they're doing. They're not showing it. But I think those people need to understand that they're not trying to show the gameplay. They're trying to show off their edit. And I
Right.
think
And
editors who do edits
yeah.
sometimes don't understand that we're not trying to, you know, have people fall in love with our editing. We want them to see the clips and we want
Yeah.
to kind of
I feel
raise
like
up the clips.
some editors look at like really simple edits, like I don't know, a Mr. Bond edit that doesn't have like a lot of effects but focuses only on flow, and they think, oh, they're half-assing it. They didn't learn enough about the program. They didn't learn, or they didn't try hard enough. But if it was in, I don't know, it just bugs me because like everyone has like their individual style, but if you're trying to showcase the gameplay, you're not gonna want to go like over the top with everything like you know how to do possible. You're not gonna want to try and fit that into one video because it's gonna end up hurting the clips that you're editing.
Yeah,
And that's
for
that's
sure.
why I consider my own edits pretty boring for the most part, because I don't at all think that my editing is going to be interesting enough to focus on that over the gameplay. I always assume that the gameplay is going to be better than my editing. So I just find a way to portray it as well as I can. And I will continue to do that for every single video that I make. So,
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this is kind of similar, but not really. But I've learned this through a few edits I've done. Is there's also kind of a controversy within montage edits where when a montage is released or being worked on, whose video is it actually? Is it the
Yeah.
editors or the players?
Mhm.
And I'd like to think most of the time it's both. Like, for example, yeah, I'm editing Mike's M9, but I am the editor, so it's partly my video because I'm kind of creating the thing, but it's his gameplay and it's his video. It is his.
Yeah.
But um, one thing too is for editors who just do edits, they are the editors. For us
Yep.
three, kind of, we are, in a sense, we're the editors, we're the directors, we're the producers, the sound designers, we're all of that because, you know,
Yeah.
in a kind of complicated way to put it, the players who get the clips, they're like the actors, and we're kind of everyone else.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, oh, we do everything else. It should be our video. I'm not saying that, but um, I think that's just one thing to keep in mind too sometimes.
And I think that I can say also that when we edit, we always like put our own spin on it too. So we're not
Yeah.
like I mean, we're trying to think of what the player would want and what they would like, but we're also like putting in our own ideas and our own creativity into it.
I feel like less and less montages nowadays are getting a little less creative. Like I think a lot of montages nowadays are fairly standard. Like the effects are pretty standard. Like even some of my edits
Oh
lately
yeah.
have been kind of
All of mine are
standard.
standard. Are you kidding me?
I
yeah.
don't I okay. Well, anyway, um usually with velocity kind of edits comes a lot of shaky cam, you know? I guess I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of wiggling and shaking. Now, I personally like wiggling and shaking, maybe not as much as they do, but I definitely like it. I like adding it to my angles and stuff. I know Silly Goose did it a lot, but one thing that I find interesting is I distinctly remember, especially from Taj's like Apex, he had uh, what was the capture card called that he used?
Dazzle
Yeah,
or
he had a
something. Yeah.
Dazzle capture card and probably had a really early version of Sony Vegas. And one of the things I remember from that was he had a really earthquake shaky cam all the
Oh
time
yeah.
through that. And, it wasn't that bad. I didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of cool and it really added to the intensity and stuff. But now softwares have improved and capture cards have improved that now if editors do that and stuff, I'm kind of like, whoa, whoa, slow down. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's too much, and there's like RSMB and which is motion blur if people don't know and stuff. And I sometimes think it's too much. Now, again, I say that it's subjective, and I can't completely like say I'm against that because I think I've been guilty of that a few times. But that's something I just think is kind of interesting is how yeah, some of the like simple effects used in old Tages are used in new Tages, and they're the same effect, but they're used differently, and softwares and stuff has improved, but the effect doesn't work the same as it did.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that
know if you
definitely
got
goes with like song choice too, because like if I
yeah,
were to use those super colorful effects and like like, I don't know, a really like intense rap song, it obviously wouldn't work nearly as well as like a standard like EDM song.
Here's part of the thing is that montage I mentioned where I kind of disappointed the client. Um, he expected more out of it, and part of it was the type of song that we agreed upon. And because we agreed upon it, I guess I just kind of assumed he would have a similar vision to me on how it would turn out. But I definitely used a lot less effects in it because I feel like the kind of effects that I wanted to use didn't fit with the song well.
I think that's the thing too. This is kind of going on the different types of montage edits, kind of getting away from editors who just do edits. I think some things is like, for example, Fat Rat Felix, his M3 is probably one of the best Halo 3 montages to have come out in a long time. I
Yeah,
mean, I know it's a couple years old now, but
absolutely.
he edited it really well, but it was for the most part fairly simple.
Yeah.
Like I think, if one of us were to edit it, we'd probably, not do more with it, but it'd feel like it was more. Like we'd probably have more angles, more flashy effects, more stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't have turned out as good,
Yeah.
honestly, because he did it where he raised up his clips, but you focused on the clips, you didn't really focus on his edit and stuff. So I think that's the thing is I really like montages because I really like all the effects and angles I add and all the flashy stuff I add, and I like doing that to my somewhat average clips. But I like his kind of montages just as much because of the simplicity of it.
And back to what I was saying about how you don't need fancy effects, you got to focus on flow. Like some of my favorite montages ever don't have like anything fancy in them.
But
Like
yeah, like
so many of Mr. Blonde edits are just super like tight, spot on flow, and that's all you need for a really enjoyable video, honestly.
well,
Like
yeah, like as many of you know, I'm a huge Reach kid, so I'm gonna bring Reach into this for a minute. We talked about this Taj earlier. One of my favorite Reach Tajes is Terminus, with Cause of Hill,
yeah,
Toasty, and Howard. But one of my other favorite Tajes is Just Mad's Montage 1, which literally has probably the simplest editing you could
only
go.
syncing. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
literally only syncing. It has cross dissolves. It has a bit of slow motion, a bit of speeding up, not really that
yeah.
much, and
But
simple
there are like
syncing.
no effects, no.
There's
I
no
didn't think there
effects.
were
There's
many angles in that either. Yeah, it was
I
just
think there
really
was a few angles, but not really that much. It was really simple intro text, and it was still like it's still one of my favorites, at
yeah.
least for social touches.
Hmm.
I think the last topic that we're going to go over is originality, which we touched up on a bit at the beginning, kind of in the method of workflow that we described. But I'd like to go a bit more in depth into it, more like the decision making process of why you decide to do the original things that you come up with. So,
Who's you?
well, let's start with you, Aaron.
Okay. Um, well, I think we've talked about this plenty of times, but for me, it's obviously the song. The
Hmm.
song is my decision maker. Like, for example, I think one of my most creative things, like we said, was the tree from Keats' Montage 5. And the main reason I did that was because the song was called Force of Nature. And the song literally starts out saying, like, Force of Nature. And I was thinking, okay, nature, tree, that's a cool tree. Can I put that there? And then I did it. Um, I think it's all kind of based on that. Like, there's a song that I'm editing to right now where there's three beats and it says these words, and there's a symbol that can relate to those words that is split up into three parts. So I can easily like have those parts come in on each beat to make that. So I think that's one of the things for sure is like I think there's definitely editors who are just creative on their own But for me personally, I need the songs to kind of help me with my creative stuff. Like I think that's me even outside of editing. I need something to go off of to, come up with something. Like I can't think of creative things I've done on the top of my head right now.
I can
Like,
think
and
of a bunch, but they're not out yet.
can you think of any that are out?
I mean, I thought the thing in your M4, the sequence with the puppet and the Spartans who were like
Oh
sort of
yeah.
attacking,
I
I
don't even
thought that was
remember. I don't even remember how I came up with that, to be quite honest. But I will say that was definitely a cool thing to do because that's another thing too. Is besides song ideas, I try to do stuff that I haven't seen before, and I think Chris said that earlier about me. I've definitely tried to do stuff I haven't done before, like that puppet effect. There has been puppet effects, but none like that, I guess, where it kind of like I don't even remember how I did it, to be honest. I will say, there was one effect I really liked, and again, that was just because of the beat, but it was also in my M4, and it was my prisoner tack exterm, where the exterm was 3D tracked, like where rockets spawn. I don't know if you guys remember that effect, but
yeah.
I remember really loving how that turned out because like that was a visionary thing I had.
Hmm.
At least at the time when I made like my M4, for example, I know that I like editing fast and I know Devin likes editing fast, but sometimes if you edit slow, even though motivation might be hard to get back up, there was a lot of effects in my M4. And I think my M4 has the most unique effects out of any video I've made. A lot of those came up just because I sat on that project for so long that like I had more time to think of stuff and more things kept coming and coming and coming and then I put
Yeah.
it together. I don't know if I told you this, Devin, but I definitely told Chris. For Mike's M9, one really bold idea I had, which didn't work. Yeah, see, I have a lot of ideas, but they don't work. Was like completely masking out the sky of Guardian and putting
Oh
other
yeah.
maps around it as I pan around all of Guardian.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, it didn't work very well. But that's just like I try to come up with new stuff whenever I can, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but usually it turns out all right.
Yeah.
Chris?
Well, I mean, first of all, like in terms of originality in general, I would just say that I mean, obviously it depends on how creative the person is, what ideas they have for the video, but also just like in general, there's been so much done with editing. It's actually really hard to be original these days with brand new ideas. Like like you can do things that are based on other people and I don't know, you like put your own spin on them for sure, but it's really hard to see something where it's like, wow, I've actually never seen anything like this in a montage before. Like I mean, I'll point out one which I didn't notice originally, and I mean, this is a pretty like some people don't know about this, but like there's a part in DeLongo's Halo 3 montage 1 from Zestel where he splices together two clips and a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people have absolutely no idea why he did that, and I honestly don't know why he did that either, but I can honestly say I've never seen anything done like that in a montage before, like ever. And I mean, sometimes that's just what it takes, just like doing really bold ideas that a lot of people like. I mean, some people might find them pretty like I don't know, controversial based on I don't know, their beliefs and stuff, but there are definitely some that it it pays off when you actually like try new ideas. And like there's so many ideas I've tried or like I've envisioned that I couldn't actually end up pulling off. Like my original idea for the intro of my Reach M1 was going to be like a bunch of masks going from map to map to map, and it
Oh, I
ended up being just
remember
like
that.
a black a black screen with a film burn and like basic text because like I gave up on that so fast. And a lot of that definitely is just editing knowledge. I don't have like a lot of it when it comes to After Effects, but I mean, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that. So I mean, I don't know. I personally don't think I've been super like original with my edits before, but I've definitely had original ideas that could be pulled off by people who have a lot more knowledge than I do. It really just comes down to how much time you want to put into learning the stuff that you envision.
One thing I remember is if you guys remember Dogtown that I did for you, Chris,
Yeah.
I remember people praised me for that intro with the apple.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, do you kind of remember those particles that were going around it?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so like my original idea was for those particles to come together and form the apple. That was my original idea. And that
Mm.
didn't work, so I got
Yeah.
really lazy and just added or I got a picture of an apple, masked it out, and then made it red, and then added that, and then it turned out like that. And like people praise me for it. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't really do what I wanted to, but okay, thank you. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing is yeah, sometimes creativity doesn't always work out. Um, but it's still good to try at least.
Yeah. I definitely feel like a lot of editors in the community would have a lot more to say about this than we do, like Zestel, Puba,
Yeah.
Silly Goose, all those guys. I feel like they definitely would have a better grasp on originality just because they put so much more time into like learning the programs than we have. But I mean, they're not really around that much anymore. And
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that they're working on stuff that I don't know about, but I mean, a lot of them have kind of moved on, but their inspiration lives on for sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I guess I'll chip in a bit on originality, even though I still don't agree that I'm very original. Um, and the reason being is just because I'm very systematic about everything I do. And it kind of to combine a thing that both of you said, Aaron, you said that the song kind of drives your creativity. And then
Yeah.
Chris, you said how it's hard to find something that hasn't already been done before. And that's
Yeah.
part of it. Because I just don't feel like I could come up with something that hasn't been done before in terms of editing. Then I just use the song to come up with things. And as you'll notice, like anytime that the song that I'm working with has something, as I mentioned that during slower parts of the footage, I'll do some kind of a keyframed effect to keep you visually occupied, but I always make sure that that effect matches the song in some way. I don't want to just throw a random effect in there, although sometimes it does turn into that if there's no way to really match something with the song, and I really hate doing that. But, I'll always find some way to really match, basically create a theme. And I remember Chris mentioning that when I made Old Memories for Mike,
Yeah.
how that one I tried to make it very theme driven based off of the song. And it's not the only one that I've done it for, but I do feel like the theme was extremely heavily like enforced in that montage versus some of the other ones that I've made. But yeah, again, because of that, I feel like I'm not creative. I'm just following a checklist on my workflow. So when I feel like it can be written down into predicting myself and how it's going to happen, I don't consider it creative anymore. Whereas things that you guys do, it's not something that you could necessarily expect, you know, especially like when Aaron threw out, again, we're going to reference the tree. I don't think anyone necessarily expected that to happen. But I can guarantee that eventually, if not already, people can already just kind of predict what I'm going to do to a degree when I put things together. So,
Well, you were saying, like you took something from me and took something from Chris about the song and never been done. Well, that's true, but when I think of it, it's like, well, this song's never been done. So I feel like every time you use a new song, there's always something new you can add.
Yeah.
Not saying it's easy to find what that thing is, but I feel like there's always something creative you can add that goes with that specific song. Now, it might be hard if you've, used songs from that artist before or that song's um, a really popular one and stuff, but I think there's always something you can do. So,
Well, and I actually do have, again, the kind of super seeker project down the road. I have things very vividly planned out for it. And one of the songs I have an angle sequence that I have two separate but very distinct ideas for it. I'm not sure which one I want to do yet, but one of them for sure has never been done before, and the other one has mostly never been done before. I don't know how to explain it without giving away what I'm imagining, but that's just kind of an angle sequence though. Whereas I feel like angles leave a lot of room for creativity, and that's also part of my limiting factor is that I avoid angles. So, because again, with what I do, I just modify the footage I've already been given. I don't insert things into it. The only times I ever use angles is some kind of a cinematic for the intro and outro, and or providing an angle to give clarity to what happened in the footage. So, for example, I'm going to spoil a clip for a video that I worked on. There's a clip where the guy is on asylum and he ricochets the sniper round through shoddy tunnel to kill someone on the other end. And I did an angle to show that because you never see the player throughout that entire first person perspective. So I do that to give clarity to the footage. But again, it's not really creative. I felt like it was something I had to check off my list. The moment I saw that clip, I thought, all right, I have to show an angle of it. So, just kind of following my work process versus doing something new. So, I don't know. I gave a pretty antinomical answer to originality for that one, but I guess that's what I have to say about it on my end.
no, I think that was good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard thing to talk about because it's a really hard thing to do in general.
Yeah.
I guess that's all we're going to talk about for this podcast episode. The next one I kind of have had planned out for a while. I want it to be based around originality in gameplay. And we're just
Yeah,
kind of waiting
and
on a
we have a
certain
guest in
someone.
mind that we don't know if it's going to happen yet, but if it does, it'll be awesome. So,
I
Yeah.
probably won't be there because I'm not original in gameplay, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll likely have the crew of me and Chris and Normac back together. And again, the guest.
yeah, but thank you for joining us in this episode, Aaron, because I
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
yeah, you had a lot to add for sure.
Thank
So,
you.
if there's one thing that I want to say to like up and coming editors to close this, I just say focus on the gameplay, focus on your flow, focus on your syncing, and then worry about all the other stuff if you really have the motivation to do so.
Anything from you, Aaron?
Um, do what you want to do with your edit. Because I know we've all said our opinions and stuff and talked about other things, but when it comes down to it, do what you like doing. And if
Absolutely.
you're happy with it, then that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
And that's it for me.
With that being said, I guess we're going to end it, and we'll see you in the next one.